Coming up on No Pulp, sadly, for the second time in history, a 16 seed have taken down a 1 seed.
Oh, they most certainly did. And the Jayhawks also went down. We'll let you know why the defending champs couldn't repeat.
Plus, it's Sklar time in the
yeah.
juicer. John Dales has the impossible task of taking on Stephen Sklar.
I'll be ready for that one. After that, we go through our women's tournament bracket, give you our final 4 picks.
Plus, a special plays of the week from both of us and final words. Don't go anywhere. No Pulp starts right now.
Golden Spikes. Sonny DeShero from Auburn. The freshman never win. The freshman never win championships.
Sharon May, you are an absolute square.
Cleveland the catch. Good if it goes. Oh, he hit it.
Wow, it is getting serious.
Frankly, I'm pretty embarrassed.
Bang!
All day life. On the blue line.
Welcome into No Pulp. John Dales and Jacob Moore is back with you, talking the wide world of March Madness.
Oh, yeah.
And unfortunately, John Dales, we have to start at a place close to my heart, and that's the Purdue Boilermakers, who have once again not shocked the world and shocked, we'll say, Purdue fans. The Boilermakers fall to 16 seed Fairleigh Dickinson, which I didn't think it could get worse than when the Boilers fell to 15 seeded St. Peter's, but they never failed to surprise me. An unbelievable performance by Fairleigh Dickinson, an unbelievable performance by Purdue for all the wrong reasons. We all have to start asking, John, is this a Purdue problem we're seeing in West Lafayette every single season?
Look, it's certainly a problem. I know
It's a problem. I agree.
You're going to get on your soapbox later in the show and tell all of West Lafayette what needs to change. We'll get to that later. But specifically with this year's team, with this year's Purdue team, we talked about it, right? About Zach Edey needing help.
Yeah.
And suddenly, when he gets the Edey rules against Fairleigh Dickinson and they double him up every single play, first of all, I was waiting on any team to do that all year long. But when that happens, what do the role players do? They didn't play their roles. I mean, Fletcher Lawyer was really the only guy who played decent. Mason Gillis, 1 of 7 from 3. Braden Smith, 7 turnovers. So, yeah, if you're Fairleigh Dickinson, you say, make somebody other than Edey beat us, and that's exactly what happened.
The shortest team in college basketball not only double-teamed Zach Edey, John Dales, but triple-teamed and once in a while threw a quadruple team at him. And you hit the three-point numbers, right? Even Fletcher Lawyer struggled as well. The goal of this team was to surround Zach Edey with shooters, and Purdue goes 5 of 26. And I'll get to it a little bit later in the show, but it's the insistency upon banging your head against the wall and doing the same thing if you're Purdue. Braden Smith wasn't able to handle the press. That's not new. That's been an issue for Purdue all season long. Fairleigh Dickinson beat Purdue from starting buzzer to the final buzzer. This wasn't a fluke whatsoever.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, too, on the other side, on Fairleigh Dickinson's side, give him a ton of credit. I know Matt Painter did after the game, but this might be the most impressive NCAA tournament win of all time. Look at the metrics. Outside of the top 300 in Ken Pom coming into this game, lost a game to my Hartford Hawks, who had only 2 D1 wins all season. And again, you mentioned it, tallest player on your roster, 6'6", and they beat a 7'3" Giants.
23.5-point underdogs, and they schooled Purdue. Brutal for me, but props to the Knights.
Good for America as well.
I guess.
Well, that wasn't obviously our only upset that we had in the first couple of games of March Madness. 15th seeded Princeton not only upset Arizona in the first round, but made it to the Sweet 16. That's 3 years in a row where a 15 seed has done that. Is this the most impressive run by a 15 seed so far?
I'm going to say not quite yet, because St. Peter's went to the Elite Eight, obviously, but that's not to take anything away from Princeton, because a theme between Fairleigh Dickinson and Princeton is the Tigers have dominated their way now to the Sweet 16 as well. That game against Missouri wasn't remotely close. Princeton goes and finds their way up 33-19 against Missouri, takes almost a 20-point lead, and out-rebounds an SEC team, John, by 14. 19 offensive or second chance points on 16 offensive rebounds. They blitzed the Tigers. It wasn't remotely close.
And Mizzou prided itself on defense all year long, on getting other teams uncomfortable. In Princeton, it just looked like it was in an Ivy League game in the regular conference play. I'll tell you what, they've been really good. And like you mentioned, that blowout is unbelievable what they did to Mizzou. I'm with you, too, that I wouldn't go as far as saying it's the best 15 seed. I'm still partial to Dunk City. They were the first ones that did it. On top of that, St. Peter's, obviously, you mentioned it. The two teams that they beat, Purdue and Kentucky, to do that is really impressive. And, hey, Princeton, your run isn't over yet. You still got Creighton. Creighton's been playing really well, but the way Princeton's been playing, they could knock them off, too.
I'm a little bit surprised because 9.5-point underdogs Princeton is to Creighton, and I know Creighton's been playing really well, but if you're Princeton, you say why not, especially after the performance they put up against Mizzou. Big time from Princeton, big time from Fairleigh Dickinson. Hey, we're not done with upsets. How about Arkansas taking down Kansas? A last-second thrilling finish once again for the 6th straight time. The previous national champion doesn't get out of the opening weekend of March Madness. Arkansas takes down the Jayhawks. No repeat winner this year.
I don't look at this game as Kansas, not finding a way to win. This was, again, we talked about it in lacrosse before the show.
Oh, we did.
This was a heavyweight bout. This was a 12-round fight between two teams. This is what makes March Madness incredible because every team kept making a play. If this went 5 minutes longer, this game, Kansas could have easily won. It just came down to the last couple of possessions. Ricky Council and Devontae Davis were unbelievable down the stretch. And repeating as a champion is the hardest thing to do in sports. It is. And especially keeping an entire roster in the NIL, transfer portal, one-and-done era. It's so difficult that the year that Kansas had already is remarkable, and it's just tough in the tournament to win.
And it's time to sing the praises also of Eric Musselman because talk about a postseason coach. 2 straight Elite Eights, and all of a sudden Arkansas, a team that went 8-10 in SEC play, takes down Kansas, who was a lot of people's pick to win the national title, and is back in the Sweet 16. John, I've got a great statistic for you that I think shows why Eric Musselman's a great coach. You ready for this?
Okay.
I went into the weeds for this. We're talking 26-4 since he arrived at Arkansas. Ready for this? When his teams have 4 days to prepare for other squads. By the way, 4 days to prepare for a Sweet 16 matchup upcoming against UConn. I know you disagree. The point is, you got to sing the praises of one of the SEC's best coaches. It didn't look like Arkansas was anything entirely special this season, and all of a sudden they take Kansas to the wire and they finish the Jayhawks off.
Nothing better than a game like that, close down to the finish. But also, one quick thing, the Bill Self factor, too.
Yeah,
that
hurts. That hurts.
Not having a coach in a postseason run like this, you kind of need a captain of the ship in postseason play.
Big time.
Well, we've got. Let's move over to the Big East. The Big East has been putting a lot of. It's been putting a lot of people on notice. Of the Big East teams that get into the NCAA tournament, 60% of them are still alive in the Sweet 16. Creighton, UConn, and Xavier, Providence, frauds, and Marquette have already lost. So, how underrated is the Big East?
First of all, this is not an anti-Big East agenda for me for what I'm about to say. However, I will say this does have to do a lot with the draw these teams have gotten, right? Yeah. Xavier's in the Sweet 16. It matched up against 11-seeded Pittsburgh playing its third game in basically a week. You look at Marquette, they fall to Michigan State. We're just going to throw them out, right, if we're talking about, apparently the Big East being underrated. UConn matches up against probably the worst 5-seed in NCAA tournament history in St. Mary's. Creighton's legit. My point is, I don't know if all of a sudden you can take the Big East and put them on a pedestal. It's not to take away with them. It's been an impressive run by a couple teams, but it has been a favorable draw. The teams beat the teams in front of them. It's not always the easiest thing in the NCAA tournament. I don't know if we're talking the best conference in college basketball on the side.
I'm with you to slow the roll a little bit. Maybe if all three of them win and
then
keep
we'll
going.
Have the conversation.
All right, 3 of the Elite 8, then you're still going. But I'm with you in that Marquette looks so head and shoulders above the rest of the conference. They destroy Xavier in the Big East Tournament Championship game, and they get bounced. So maybe a little bit underrated. I will say, though, I think UConn is playing some of the best basketball in the nation right now and has as good of a shot at the Final Four as any of these teams. Look at how Adama Sanogo is playing right now. 24-8 against St. Mary's. That's on the heels of 28-13 against Iona. Look, a wise man once told me, sometimes you got to root for greatness. And right now, that's what Adama Sanogo has done. You just got to cheer on greatness because he's unbelievable. This team, this UConn team, they've inspired a lot of people. Not a lot of people who watched Big East basketball all year would have thought that the Huskies would be the one leading the charge.
John Dale's resident UConn expert as well as biggest fan as well. You hit it. It's an important point because UConn's been all over the place. Started, got as high as the top 5, faded, and now the Huskies are back in full force. But all right, it's time for our first break here on No Pulp. Don't go anywhere. When we come back, it's juicer time. John Dale's battles Stephen Sklar. They go head-to-head and talk everything March Madness. We'll be right back on No Pulp. We're back on No Pulp over at the wall, and folks, it's juicer time. Jacob Morris, John Dales, and we're joined by Stephen Sklar. These two are going to go head-to-head, and I, as the always right, as John Dales knows, judge, will award points to either one, the last one being worth 2. So we start with high-seeded teams. John Dales, you sung the praises of a specific squad. Let's see if you go that direction again. Which highest-seeded team least likely to get upset in the upcoming Sweet 16?
If you're just tuning in now, you missed it, but I'll fill you back in. The UConn Huskies are the least likely team to get upset in the Sweet 16. They're playing the best basketball in the country right now. They have 2 blowout wins. Nobody else can really say that. They blew out St. Mary's, who's a 5 seed. They also blew out their first opponent in Iona. And take a look at some of these numbers when you're talking about UConn. Top 40 in scoring offense and defense. Their opponent in the Sweet 16, Arkansas, 106th and 96th. UConn, 6th nationally in assists per game. They share the ball. Arkansas, their opponent in the Sweet 16, 150th nationally. UConn also 15th in rebounds in the country. Arkansas, 139th. And I'm going to throw this out there randomly. I'm going to say Louisiana played Tennessee real close in that first game. That's a random stat for you.
That's
random
not
stat.
Not going to have anything to do with what you?
Well, I mean, it does actually have something to do. First of all, I just want to say I love the UConn pick because actually I have UConn as one of my national champions, but I just think you left an easier pick on the board. Tennessee's playing FAU. They're a 9 seed, Florida Atlantic, the Owls, and FAU. This is a game they're going to want absolutely no part of going up against Tennessee. First of all, it's FAU's first time in the Sweet 16. The experience edge goes to the Volunteers. Now, FAU's no slouch, 30th in adjusted offense, 36th in adjusted defense, but that 30th offense is going to have nothing to say against Tennessee and their number 1 adjusted defense. It's going to be a rout, and you're not going to look back if you're the Tennessee Volunteers. You love this matchup if you're them.
30th is pretty bad. Arkansas is 106th, though, so that's way worse. 3 times as bad.
John, we had a conversation where we said Eric Musselman, what is he? He's a postseason coach, and he's got 4 days to prepare for UConn, which means the Huskies might be in trouble. We go Tennessee.
There we go.
Stephen Sklar on the board. He takes a 1-0 lead. I don't like it. You brought metrics into it. I like it. That works, whatever it is. But now let's flip it over and go to the other side. Stephen, who's most likely to get canned, going home?
You know, this has been a really tough team all year, but I got to say it's Houston, and it's simply because of the matchup that they draw. They don't want to be seeing Miami, a team full of guards, deep with guards, at this time of the year, right when they're getting hot. I was watching the end of that 4-5 game between Miami and Indiana, and that's a close matchup on paper. I see Beverly and Wong. They nail back-to-back threes, take a substantial lead midway through the second half. And at that point, it was just over. They could have kicked back, relaxed, and just moved on with the game, but they didn't. They kept their foot on the gas, and that's exactly what they're going to do to the Cougars also. Wow. Guards travel in this tournament, and the gap between the one and the other high seeds has never been closer.
You're wrong with that pick. I'll get into that later. My pick is Alabama because San Diego State, their opponent, is playing really, really well right now. Maybe only second to UConn. Because take a look at what they've done. They played against Charleston in the first round, a 30-win team, and beat them bad. SDSU in the next round, same thing. They make an embarrassment of Furman. And I've got some more numbers for you, Jacob. Are you ready for this? So Bama is playing San Diego State. Bama, 29-1 this year when scoring more than 70 points. When they don't score 70 points or more, 2-4 on the season. San Diego State has not allowed 70 in the month of March. They're not going to start this round. San Diego State has Bama on upset alert.
Bama's the number 1 team in the tournament for a reason, but I'll let you.
To be fair, you said the gap between 1 seeds and other seeds has never been smaller. However, I'm going with you again. I think Alabama is miles, eons better than San Diego State, and you're telling me Charleston Southern. But all of a sudden, the FAU matchup, that's a 30-win team as well against Tennessee, but that doesn't matter?
Regular Charleston, not Charleston Southern. Just regular Charleston.
College of Charleston. Apologize.
They dropped the college out. It's just Charleston.
After the loss. 2-0 Stephen Sklar for those counting at home. John, we come back to you. Who has the easiest path, because it's always easy, right, to make the national championship? What team is it?
First of all, I'm drawing it. That's a P. This question's under protest because there is no easy route to the national championship.
That's a good point.
That being said, I have to give an answer here, and I'm going to give you an answer. The Houston Cougars have the easiest path to the national championship. Now, you ask me, why is that? Well, First of all, they play Miami first, who they match up great with on paper. Miami in their win over against Indiana, big part of their win, 20 offensive rebounds. Guess what? That ain't gonna happen against Bama against Houston when everybody just matches up about 3 inches taller than Miami. Marcus Sasser wasn't even fully healthy in the first game of this tournament too. He's still recovering from a groin injury. He scored 22 points anyways in their last game. They're too good defensively. They're too good inside and too good of shooters. I like Houston.
My problem is you picked a team from the wrong half of the bracket. That side, it's wide open right now. But on the other side, the left half with South and the South and East region, there are more bad teams on that half of the bracket. So that's why I got to go with your pick from the second question in Bama. They look so good right now. And yes, SDSU is going to be a tough matchup. The Aztecs have a swarming, sticky defense. But as long as they get through them, look at who they have to play after that in the regional finals. It's either Creighton or Princeton. The Tide have too many weapons to go down against either of those teams between Brandon Miller, Sean Marks, and Javon Quinterly. He might be the best guard in the tournament right now, best player in the tournament, maybe Adama Sanogo clearing him a little bit so far. But 17.5 points per game in the first 2 games, 57% from the field. There's no way that anyone in that half of the bracket is stopping them.
Gentlemen, great discussions on both points. If Stephen wins this one, it's an automatic win for Mr. Sklar. But those numbers John Dale's brought up are actually exactly why I'm picking John Dale's here. You talk about a sticky defense in San Diego State. Give me Houston with the easiest path. Injuries are going to maybe be a bit of an issue. I like John Dale's there. And now we go to the all-important final question.
2 points.
Worth 2 points, and we flip it around. Hardest path to the national championship. Stephen, who is it?
I'd just like to thank John from the top because he made my point in that first question. Yeah, the hardest path to get to the NCAA title game is Arkansas, and it is by far. Just look at the seed that they have. I know you like numbers. I'm going to bring up the numbers.
Give them to me.
The 8 seed has only upset the better team in the Sweet 16 9 times in tournament history. And we're just talking first round. But the question is, how are they going to get to the title game? Only 5 8 seeds have ever made it to the national title game. So forget about the title game because they're not even making it out of the first round, as I said at the beginning. UConn, tough team, averaging over 80 in the tournament, allowing under 62 opponents. Sanogo, Hawkins, it's an electric duo when they're firing on all cylinders, and they're going to rout Arkansas in that Sweet 16 battle.
Rout Arkansas. All right, John.
I'm with you on that one. I'm a fan of math. I'm a fan of arithmetic. I'm glad you brought that up. I did a little equation here, Jacob. Can you read that? It says 15 is greater than 8. So when you say the reason why that Arkansas has such a tough pass, they're an 8 seed. You might have missed it. There's a 15 seed left in the field. That's Princeton.
I didn't want to go chalk.
Okay,
I didn't want to go chalk.
I'll take the best answer then.
There you
Princeton
go.
has the hardest route to a national title because there's no shot that a 15 seed is about to win this tournament. Yeah, the 4th 15 seed to ever make it this far. All they got to do is do that again, and then do it again, and then they'll be the national champs. Still a team with a 6'6" leading rebounder. Still a Cinderella that is not going to make it to the next weekend. There's no tougher path, objectively. There is no tougher path than being the worst team in the tournament, and that is what Princeton is right now. So I'll take the time.
FAU might be a little bit worse than Princeton. It's up there. It's debatable.
Folks, I don't like when we take the suspense out of things for the audience, but it's never good when Stephen makes John's argument for him. When he said, only this amount of 8 seeds have ever made the national title. Stephen, how many 15 seeds have ever made the national title?
0.
None.
What about the Final Four?
None have done it. That's true.
Stephen makes the point for John Dales and gives John Dales 2 points. And the win in the juicer, valiant effort by both here, but John Dales ultimately takes it. Break time here on No Pulp. When we come back, we flip over to the women's side. John and I give you our Final Fours. All that and a whole lot more. More No Pulp on the other side of the break.
Welcome back into No Pulp, fresh off a juicer victory. I'm John Dales. That's Jacob Morris. We've talked a whole lot about the men's tournament so far, but let's move over to the women's side. Jacob, right now, the Sweet 16 still getting figured out as we're airing this, but let's look ahead to the Final Four. We'll start with yours. We get a blank bracket for the Final Four here. Let's fill that out.
Let's fill it in with what is exactly going to be the Final Four. We start in the top left. I don't think this should be a surprise to anybody. We're rolling with South Carolina. Put them up. There the Gamecocks are. They've been the best team all year long in women's basketball. And now if they get through the Sweet 16, which they will, you get either Notre Dame, who's playing without its best player in Olivia Miles, or you match up against Maryland that, oh yeah, the Gamecocks took care of business by 25 points. So I think that one's pretty easy. We move on now. Let's go Iowa. I'm bringing the Hawkeyes in, and I think this is pretty simple for me. If you have a good player in March, Maddie Siegrist for Villanova, I know you like her, Leah Boston for South Carolina, you're going to be in pretty good shape. Caitlin Clark, it's no secret, one of the best players in the entire country. I've got the Hawkeyes. I don't think you can argue with that. No?
I will not argue with that, no.
I like that.
She's better than a good player. Great player, maybe the best player in college basketball.
She's been fantastic all season long. We move up top. Indiana, upset by Miami. So you say, who's going to make the Final Four there? Well, I'll tell you. We're going LSU. Perhaps the most underrated, that's right, the Tigers. Step out of the way. Let the audience see that. Perhaps the most underrated 3-seed in the history of this tournament. 30-2, the Tigers, Kim Mulkey and company, and all of a sudden they come in as a 3-seed. I like LSU to make it. Lost to South Carolina, lost to a hot Tennessee team in the SEC championship game. I like Kim Mulkey and company to make it. One final team, and this shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. Give me the UConn Huskies. Yes, it's been a down year. I like how that Huskies logo is a little bit bigger than the LSU one. That's because I've got UConn in the national title game. UConn gets there. I'm rolling with the experience. Interesting to note, I know you like the Hokies. I would roll with Virginia Tech if this was how the NCAA tournament has been in past years, where the regional was in Blacksburg. Virginia Tech just hosted its second ever sold-out women's basketball game, but it's in Seattle. Give me Gino Auriemma, give me the Huskies.
All right, so that's where Jacob's got the Final Four shaking out. We'll begin with my Final Four, and pretty similar as we begin right at the top with the best team in the country, South Carolina. Look, it's hard to argue any of the points that you just brought up, but when you have a consensus, this is the best team in the country all year long, and it continues to be that way into postseason play, I'm going to roll with the Gamecocks. Remember, when they played LSU in the biggest game of the year, it was an absolute beatdown of the Tigers. So I've got South Carolina really battle-proven. We move on, same exact thing, same left side of the bracket as we have Iowa.
We're agreeing.
I don't like agreeing that much. It makes me feel weird. But Caitlin Clark, look, like I said, not just good, not just great, the best player in the country. Fantastic. I look back at that game against Indiana where she had the buzzer beater. That's one of those where everybody in the gym knows where the ball's going and when the ball's going up, and it still didn't matter. You see the graphic right there. Hawkeyes haven't lost in the month of March. I like that to continue all the way to the Final Four. We go ahead now, and Villanova is my next Final Four team. Look at that. Yes, Villanova, because they're not playing like a 4-seed right now. I mentioned it earlier in the show. They beat the best three-point shooting team in the nation and beat them bad earlier tonight against FGCU. And you have Maddie Siegrist on your team too, so that certainly helps. Double-double also for Lucy Olson in that win over the Eagles. I like the way that Villanova's playing. I like them to win a couple more, go to the Final Four. And we finish, you mentioned it, you don't have them, but I do. The Hokies and Liz Kitley are my final team. Look, they're the best team in the best conference in college basketball in the ACC. And again, we're talking about picking a player that you say, I don't think this player is going to lose. I don't think that Liz Kitley is going to let the Hokies bow out. She still has that tough upset loss in the round of 64 last year. I think that they have vengeance on their mind from that season. I think they go all the way to the Final Four this year.
Hokies have never made it past the Sweet 16. Uncharted territory for Virginia Tech. John Dale's got them. We disagree, but what's this show without some disagreement?
Exactly. Well, there you have it. At least we know the Final Four runs through Iowa and South Carolina over on that side of the bracket. Another break here on No Pulp, though. Stick around for our final words and plays of the week.
back on No Pulp, and it is play of the week time. For mine, we go to Division III basketball. National championship game. Two teams going head-to-head for all of the marbles. It doesn't get any bigger than this. Final seconds, running down. How about Christopher Newport off the glass and in? Buzzer beater for the national championship. Doesn't get any bigger than that, John.
What a shot, what a play. For my play of the week, we go to the play of the tournament and the NCAA tournament with a veteran Furman team trailing Virginia by 2 with just seconds left. Let's roll the video. Go ahead and look what happens. Kihei Clark misunderstood my coaching advice on throwing a moon ball, throws it too early. Jordan Pegues nails the game winner. That's what March Madness is all about.
Big time, and now we move to final words. It's mine, and there's an epidemic in West Lafayette, folks. The disease is postseason woes. It pains me, but we're talking North Texas, St. Peter's, Fairleigh Dickinson. I'm not here to scream from the top of a mountain, hey, can Matt Painter? He's one of the best regular season coaches in all of America, but the fact of the matter is the Boilermaker recipe, it's failed time and time again, and at the root of it is lack of adjustments. Purdue struggled against the press all year long, and yet the team looked flabbergasted when the smallest team in college basketball applied one all game. The idea was to surround Zach Edey with shooters, and yet on the biggest stage, 5 of 26 from behind the arc. It's fine. Sacrifice all ball handling and perimeter defense for shooting, but that's what happens when there's no backup card. You can't be one-dimensional anymore. Purdue continues to bang its head against the wall. John, same thing's going to happen again.
Well, Jacob, you might not be aware. There's more than just the NCAA and the NIT tournaments going on. The CBI tournament's happening right now, and it is a disaster. In the game between West Carolina and Charlotte, the shot clock got turned off. They played through the PA announcer counting down from 5 on the speaker. This is a D1 basketball game. Also, take a look at this food. Orange chicken? That looks like just chicken with mandarin orange slices served to players. And lastly, Detroit Mercy thought they were headed to the CBI when the official tourney's Twitter account tweeted out a map from their campus to the tournament location, but they didn't. Antoine Davis got stopped 3 points short of an NCAA record. He couldn't play.
CBI a disaster, this show not, though. John Dales and Jacob Morris saying so long and thanks so much.